Hi everyone, this is Nikki Jameson here, and I'm back with another video in Corel Painter 2023. So in this video I'm going to show you more about how to proceed once you've done a sketch in Corel Painter. So in my last video I went over creating a sketch using, let's get on the right layer here, by going to the effects menu in Corel Painter and either picking sketch from a photograph, or going to surface control and going to the bottom and picking sketch. Okay, so I'd encourage you to watch that video if you haven't already done so. We started with a photograph which we turned into a sketch. This was the sketch that we ended up with. And then with another layer, by adding another layer, we went over that. Let's put it back to a brush. We went over that sketch layer to start picking out the sketch parts that you actually want, because it's very unlikely you're going to want to have as detailed a sketch as the one we have here. Don't forget, the photograph shows a lot of detail, but it's up to the artist to decide how much detail they want to keep that will add to the actual final painting. So it should not be, you shouldn't be aiming to just reproduce the photo. So anyway, I just started sketching here at the end of the last video just to give you some options. I don't really have the right sketching brush at the moment. I will try and find one in a second, but what I wanted to show you here was how you can go one step further after you've done your sketch. So what you could do is you can crop the sketch and make it smaller. And you'll notice that here that the sketch initially was on the canvas layer, and if I close the canvas layer you get the checkerboard effect, because the canvas is really your base layer. So what I did was to duplicate that canvas layer, and the reason I duplicated the canvas layer was because I wanted to place the sketch on a background. So if I close this canvas layer for a bit and close my layer 1, you'll see on my layer 1, this is where I was doing the drawing, right? The additional sketching, okay? The canvas layer is closed, the duplicated canvas layer. And what I've done is I've also imported a texture. Now, you may or may not have a texture available, but you can actually get free textures. But textures are a really interesting way of adding some interest to your painting. So we've got our canvas layer down here, which is more or less, we're not going to paint on the canvas layer. We have the duplicate canvas layer here, which I'm actually going to call this maybe sketch 1. Okay, and then this layer, we'll call it maybe sketch 2. Okay, now sketch 1 is sketch 1. If we close sketch 2, we have the layer that we created by going to the effects menu, and if we open the layer called sketch 2, we get the layer that we are painting on, or that we might paint on. But I want to say here that this will not necessarily be the painting layer. This will be the layer that we're creating our second sketch. So that I will call is our sketch 2, where we put our own creative sketch on the sketch we created here. And then this is a plain layer here. So how do you bring in this a background? So what you do is you go to File, and you can either do Open, but the best way to do it so you don't open a brand new document is to go File, Place. Now, this is just one way of doing it. So I'm going to bring in another, this is just some textures I like using. You can use any textures, and then it's going to ask you, what size you want it. So for now, I'm going to constrain the aspect ratio, retain the alpha, and I'm going to say OK. So what it will do is it will place it over. I already have a texture here, which is this brown, this goldy brown one, and it will ask you if you want to create a default layer with this, and I actually do. All right, so to transform it, to move it in any way, it has to become a default layer. So I'll say yes to that. If I want to move it around, I can. I'm going to press my shift key and then just extend this a little bit. Doesn't really matter how far I extend it, and click at the top. But I don't really want it above here. I mean, I can keep it there, and I could change the blend mode, okay, and I can get all sorts of things from there. But I'm going to put that back at normal, and what I'm going to do is to move this in my layer stack. I'm going to move it down. So I had this one before, the one I had here before. I'm going to keep it open for now, but now you'll see that I've placed this second layer over the previous layer that I had. So that just gives us an interesting way to build our sketch up. So we still have our sketch, and what I would suggest is once you build up your sketch 2 layer, okay, once you've added your lines and any kind of blocking in, you can turn off your sketch 1 layer and you have a more organic painting. But I would keep that on as a guide, and in fact what you can do so that you don't paint on that is to click on this padlock icon here, and it will lock that layer. Don't click on your sketch 2 until you've finished sketching on it, otherwise you won't be able to do anything on it. You can also, if you wish, add gradients or blend the background layer. So for instance, if I turn off sketch 1 and turn off sketch 2 and just stay on, let's say, this layer for the moment, I can pick a brush, see if I can find a blending brush here. It needs to be a blender. Let's choose messy oil. I think this is one that can do it. It's not quite the one I want. I'm going to make it a bigger brush. Just don't want around for brushes here because I didn't really think this through. Now you can either add another layer on top of this, or you can just begin to blend. And because I've got pick up underlying color, if I want, I can blend in the layer below. Reset is right down, seems to be okay. And you can just blend it so that you can, just get a more organic feel to it. I want to choose another brush here. So here I've chosen a different brush called Rough Edge Blender, really just to show you what you can do to change the texture. And as I say, you don't have to use a texture at all. You can fill the layer with a color, and you can even use Corel's Painter painterly textures and bring them in. There's a different process for that though, so I will maybe show you that on a different video if there's interest. So all I've done here is just show you how to just organically create an interesting background, which you can do, and you can bring in more textures just using your layers. I just really have the reset down here. I've made it a fairly big brush, and because it's on its blending setting, it's not actually imparting color, it's just blending. And then what I will do, I can do the same thing with this. I could turn off this particular texture, click on this one. Oops, I hadn't committed that yet. So, and I could do the same thing for this layer. I'm not going to do that right now though. So I'm going to open this one again, and here we have our text. We have our texture. All right, so we have our paint blended texture. Oops, could make sure you're on the right layer here. Okay, and now when you open your sketch layer, you can open your sketch 1 and open your sketch 2. You've just got this really interesting background, and you can still continue to paint on that layer, and you won't really affect the sketch layer because it's above. What you want to do with the sketch layer as well, if you want to keep it there as a guide, you can lock it. We have it set on multiply, and you can also set your own sketch layer on multiply. That will darken the layers, so but you will be able to see it, and you can then add a layer beneath. You can bring this layer down, and you can paint on the layer underneath. Lock your other sketch layer once you finish painting it, but you will have this guide here, and that way you've got your sketch in place. I would recommend locking your top sketch layer once you finish sketching, not before. And you might not even need the second one. Once you've put in some lines, you might not even need the second one. It's just there to act as a guide. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been helpful for you. If so, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in another video. Take care.